vision or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Marge Lauber, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So the first issue we're reading from is dated May 12th, which was a Tuesday, and we have some interesting articles here today. Rooted in Lockport, McCollum Orchards begins their agricultural history with modern growing practices. So each of the city's neighborhoods have their unique characteristics, harkening back to their historic roots. Just within the city's northern limits, Rich and Bree Bacon Woodridge continue to operate McCollum Orchards, the 100-acre farm that Rich's great-great-great-grandfather, Hiram McCollum, founded at 248 North Adams Street. McCollum Orchards will turn 200 years old next year, and while the farming tradition is still alive there, the Woodbridges implement the largest agricultural techniques in their growing operations. With the new growing season beginning, McCollum Orchards will sell garden plants during the last 2 weeks in May. We're really good at starting plants, Rich said, standing in his greenhouse of flawless flower starts, spotless vegetable and herb seedlings. We select them for flavor, he said. We do heirloom varieties and grow what tastes good and grows well. To cater to people in Lower Town who grow in containers, which said he offers a popular potato eggplant, the Sun God Energy tomato, and the Carmen sweet Italian bell peppers. Woodridges have already planted an acre of garlic and will eventually plant out some of their tomatoes and peppers in their high tunnel. Their tomatoes are trained to a single leader and grow to 10 feet tall, Rich said. Many of the vegetables produced at McCollum Orchards are sold to the veggie van operated by Cornell Corporation Extension of Niagara County. Rather than compete with other greenhouses in growing hanging baskets of flowers, the Woodbridges grow hanging baskets of edibles, which can feature a combination of a small tomato variety with basil. McCollum's Orchard's long history is not only a testament to good stewardship, but to the unique growing conditions found among the Niagara Escarpment. And Radium Girls bring glaring historic tragedy to the Taylor Theater. Truth can be stranger than fiction, and the story of the Radium Girls of the 1920s still emanates an eerie cautionary glow about ethics and business. The Lake Plains players embraced the challenging story in the production of Radium Girls, and that was a couple of weeks ago. But the play portrayed the tragic stories of young women who took the sought-after job of painting watch dials with glow-in-the-dark radium paint. That's what their life has become from doing that. So I think it would have been pretty interesting. If it comes around again, I think it would be worth seeing. And the fashion outlets are seeking stability. With occupancy down and shopping habits shifting, the owners of the fashion outlet mall are seeking renewed tax breaks and financial relief. The documents for this week's Niagara County Industrial Development Agency Board meeting showed two separate applications for renegotiated tax assistance related to the mall. One is from Fashion Outlets 2 LLC, and the other is parent company Meckrich Niagara LLC. The two requests seek more than $17 million in property exemptions from the agency. Wow. And one of our local residents turned over a spider monkey. A spider monkey who was suffering from poor care was turned over to the Department of Environmental Conservation officers last month on Grand Island. The DEC investigators responded to a Grand Island home on April 14th, where a resident was illegally in possession of the spider monkey. Officers said the resident acknowledged she could no longer care for the spider monkey and turned it over to investigators, who then took it to the primate sanctuary in Niagara Falls, the only licensed primate facility in New York. After later checking in with the sanctuary, DEC investigators learned the spider monkey had a broken right wrist and a case of rickets. likely due to poor diet and lack of veterinary care. The animal is still being cared for by the primate sanctuary. So, spider monkeys are illegal to possess as pets in New York State, and the DEC does not issue licenses for primates as pets. There you go. And then in other news, Kathy Hochul, our governor, on Monday defended herself against criticism from labor allies and members of her own party over her intent to opt into the GOP's federal tax credit scholarship program, which would help families pay for private school and other educational expenses. New York's participation in the scholarship program is a non-starter for the states and cities' teachers' unions, who contend the program takes students and public dollars away from local public schools. The governor disagrees with that characterization. This money, she said, during an unrelated news conference in Midtown East, is not public dollars that could have been going to a public school are now going to private schools. It's just not how it works. So under the program, American taxpayers can receive dollar-for-dollar credits of up to $1,700 for donations to approved nonprofits that grant scholarships. The organizations that offer financial support for private or religious school tuition, tutoring, after-school programs, classroom supplies, and other school-related costs. Families who earn up to 300% of their area's median income, or a maximum of $309,000 in New York City, will be eligible, including those who are already paying for private schools. The program was launched as part of President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, but requires states to opt in for families to participate. Dozens of Republican-led states have signed up, but only one Democrat governor has given that official green light so far, which was Governor Jared Polis of Colorado. So we, unfortunately, also have a couple obituaries here. Gary Brockman passed away on May 5th in Long Island, New York. Mary Rose Gardepe passed away on March 5th. She was born in Lockport. Okay, in this episode, issue, let's see. A closer look at John Duke, the man behind the senior center name. In Niagara Falls, the name John Duke has been synonymous with the Niagara Falls Senior Center for decades. On Monday, members of Duke's family joined senior residents and city leaders in honoring his legacy by unveiling a new portrait created to reintroduce the community to a man who played a key role in the building's construction in the 1980s. So we hope that everyone who walks through these doors will remember the example he set of caring for your community, staying engaged, and working to make things better for others. Duke's great-granddaughter, Terry Sadone, said during Monday's portrait unveiling ceremony, an Alabama native, John Duke, moved to Niagara Falls in 1931 following a stint in the U.S. Army. He took a job at Olin Matheson Corporation before later accepting a position with the Niagara Falls Water Department. He worked for the city's water department for 25 years before retiring in 1965 as supervisor of outside maintenance. Family members said Duke has a passion for civic involvement and responsibility. Sedona said her great-grandfather considered voting one of his most important civic duties, and he always made it a point to vote either in person or by mail if he was traveling. He made sure his voice was heard in every election, she said. And Duke's civic engagement extended into community projects, including his senior art center work. Van Manning said he accomplished a lot of things in his life, mostly because he was not the kind of person who accepted no for an answer. He was a doer, Manning said. He had his mind set on things, and he would get them done. Duke's Senior Center legacy dates back to 1979, when he was appointed to serve on the Niagara Falls Senior Citizen Council. As chair of the council's site selection committee, Duke helped guide the process of developing the current senior center and helped see it through one of the most controversial issues, deciding where to build it. In other news, Trump poses a gas tax pause as Strait stays closed. So in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday said the Iran ceasefire is on life support after rejecting Tehran's latest proposal, which officials said included some nuclear concessions. Trump also proposed suspending the federal gas tax to help with higher fuel prices caused by the war. I just went by a gas station today, and the gas was $4.59 right now. So the stalled diplomacy and recent exchanges of fire could tip the Middle East back into open warfare and prolong the worldwide energy crisis sparked by the conflict. Iran still has a chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz, a vital waterway for global oil and gas shipments, and America is blocking Iranian ports. Asked at the White House if the ceasefire was still in effect, Trump said, "It's on life support. I would call it the weakest right now after reading that piece of garbage they sent us," Trump added. "I didn't even finish reading it." Trump also said he supported the suspension of the federal tax on gasoline, just 24 cents for diesel. Congress, which is controlled by Republicans, would have to approve. The tax brings in more than $23 billion each year. This pledge came after fuel prices surged past $4.50 a gallon last week, and Trump predicted that the price of oil and gas would drop like a rock as soon as the hostilities are over. And the next we have the founder and guardians celebrating the United States semi-quest-centennial. Founders and guardians Edward R. Murrow. Remember him? Egbert Roscoe Murrow was born in Polecat Creek near Greensboro, North Carolina, on Saturday, April 25, 1908. He was one of 4 sons born to Roscoe and Edith Murrow. In 1913, the family moved to Blanchard, Washington. He attended Edison High School, where he was a thoroughly engaged and academically talented student. After graduation, he attended Washington State College or University. As in high school, Murrow excelled academically, and he was active in athletics, music, and student government. During his college years, he exchanged his first name to Edward. After graduating in 1930 with a major in speech, Edward moved to New York. He worked for the Institute for International Education, assisting academics displaced from Nazi Germany. In 1935, Edward R. Murrow joined the team at Columbia Broadcasting System, that's CBS, identifying key figures shaping the news, then introducing them into CBS programming. He worked with Bob Trout, a CBS announcer, who became both an inspiration and a mentor to Murrow when he made the transition from programming to announcing. That same year, he married Janet Brewster. They had one son, Charles, who was born in London in 1945. Murrow was sent to London to expand the influence of CBS in Europe in 1937. Then in the spring of 1938, he spoke live from Vienna, reporting on the annexation of Austria by Hitler's Nazi Germany. His career as a new journalist in the modern era of remote live news broadcasts had begun. Over the next 3 years, Murrow reported from London on the outbreak of World War II during the German and Italian bombing campaign of London, known as the Blitz. He began his broadcast with, "This is London." Murrow shared the hardest realities of war with the world through his graphic and unbiased reports. He concluded these broadcasts with what would become his signature broadcasting, "Good night and good luck." Late in 1941, Murrow returned to the United States. When the United States entered World War II, Murrow returned to London and built a news team that became known as Murrow's Boys. He continued his wartime broadcasts, including eyewitness reporting for more than 20 Allied bombing missions in which he flew. General Eisenhower's June 6, 1944 D-Day ordered his soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Expeditionary Force was shared with the troops prior to the opening of the invasion. Murrow shared that same order with the American public via a radio broadcast, and in his relaxed yet firm manner, he helped make the American public aware of what Eisenhower termed the Great Crusade. Murrow returned home as the most trusted voice in radio. So following the war, Murrow briefly assumed a management position with CBS, soon opting to return to broadcasting. He was a regular on CBS and he hosted several network programs. In 1951, he made the transition from radio to television when his radio program, Hear It Now, became the television program, See It Now. As host of the program, Person to Person, which began in 1953, Murrow took his viewers into the homes of contemporary notables for a tour and informal interviews. Some of those he visited were Senator and Mrs. John Kennedy, actress Lucille Ball, and poet Carl Sandburg. Murrow sought out controversial political and social issues. Two examples demonstrate his willingness and skills in doing so. One was a report on Senator Joseph McCarthy, aired in 1954. In the midst of the Red Scare, McCarthy, a Wisconsin senator, was largely responsible for the scare with the baseless doubt and panic he created regarding communist infiltration of the United States. After Murrow's episode and a rebuttal by McCarthy, both the senator and his fear campaign faded quickly. The second Murrow, last major broadcast, aired in November of 1960, was the documentary Harvest of Shame, a stark and troubling description of life for migrant farm workers in the United States. Increasingly finding himself at odds with CBS management and sponsors, he ended his tenure with CBS that same year. Into a reading of articles and features for the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So we're going to move on to our next issue of May 13th. Robbery trial gets underway. A Lockport man was accused of using a note at M&T Branch in 2024. So in Lockport, opening statements were made Tuesday in the trial of a Lockport man accused of using a note to rob $872 from a local bank. The man police arrested in connection with the crime did not attend the proceedings due to what he described as the pool of corruption he contends permeates the justice system in Niagara County. Butcher previously argued in an April 17th motion filed by his appointed attorneys that the indictment against him should be dismissed due to diplomatic immunity based on his status as a diplomatic law enforcement ambassador for the Global Republic of Tartaria. In the same motion, he argued Niagara County courts lack jurisdiction to prosecute him. An Iroquois eaglet, in other news, about halfway through his nesting stage. Lone chick is now 40 days old with signs of flight feathers. The eaglet at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge that many have been following through the bald eagle nest camera was 38 days old as of Monday and is growing by leaps and bounds. Just like human babies, the eaglet is doing a lot of eating and sleeping, sometimes both. Mother eagle brought in a juicy catfish the other day, but the chick wasn't hungry and he used the catfish for a pillow, at least when the catfish stopped flopping around. Another time, Father Eagle brought in a stick, disappointing the chick who was looking for some fish bites. As an only chick, the eaglet is being fed very well, so it is growing fast and hitting all its important behavioral and physical milestones. It is taking much larger bites of food, including being able to digest fur, feathers, scales, and small bones. It reaches toward the parents and pecks at them to ask for food. It partly helps itself by picking up and eating dropped pieces of food. Its body feathers are growing in, and the primary flight feathers can be seen poking out of the sheaths at the wings and tail. The eaglet is also entertaining camera viewers with more wingersizing, an eagle version of calisthenics. It's gaining more strength in its legs, and you can see the eaglet standing up more often. Once it gains more stability in those legs, riding the rails is a term used on eagle cameras. The chick will start to perch near or on the sticks surrounding the abode. The camera was funded and installed by the Friends of Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge, with assistance from PixCams Incorporated out of Pittsburgh and Treatment Tom Tree Services out of Wilson. You can watch the feed and monitor in the refuge. If you're keeping track, the eaglet is about halfway through its nesting phase. Next, the eagle will be doing more standing and walking in the fully upright adult position instead of scooting around using its hocks and wings. It's already starting to do this, but it will happen more often. In the next few weeks, it will also start doing more practice flapping to build breast and wing muscles. Then in about 4 weeks, they'll start hopping and flapping to practice hovering around the nest. At that point, its feathers will be much more grown in, and the bird will fully be dark brown. And it will also be able to feed itself from prey items brought to the nest, although the parents will continue to feed it. So toward the end of June, the juvenile will be able to balance and perch on branches, hover reliably above the nest, and flap from the branch to branch. The primary wing and tail feathers will be almost entirely grown, and it should fledge, be ready for its first flight, in late June or early July. The eaglet will typically hang around a few weeks after fledging, but then head off to seek its own territory. This week's Hops for Hope to support Appeal 2026. I guess that was from last week, and I hope you made it to that. Let's see. We do have some obituaries here also in this issue. Helen By passed away March 11th. She was in Newfane. And Ronald Weaver from Lockport passed away on May 11th also. So there was a man who received conditional discharge for killing 2 kittens. How can you kill kittens? A town of Hamburg man received a conditional discharge Tuesday morning. His guilty plea to killing 2 kittens in 2024. Joshua Taylor, also known as Mariah Taylor, 39 of Hamburg, pleaded guilty Tuesday before Erie County Court Judge James Bargenesi to one count of attempted aggravated cruelty to animals. There's a Class A misdemeanor under New York State agricultural and markets law. Taylor entered a guilty plea to the reduced charge in full satisfaction of the indictment. So on January 17, 2024, Town of Hamburg Police responded to an apartment at 4500 block of Southwestern Boulevard for a welfare check. Police received a phone call from the legal occupant of the apartment who was unable to get in touch with Taylor, her ex-partner, for several hours, expressing concern for him, 2 adult cats, and 3 kittens inside of the apartment. The responding police officers received consent from the caller to conduct the welfare check and search the residence, where they found 2 cats inside of the apartment, but not Taylor or the kittens. A short time later, police found Taylor in a nearby parking lot. The 3 kittens were found inside a pillowcase that were buried in the snow on the balcony of the apartment. Police took the kittens to the Orchard Park Veterinary Clinic, where a veterinarian found 2 of the kittens were deceased and 1 kitten in critical condition inside of a zippered bag, which is inside of the pillowcase. The 2 deceased kittens were sent to Cornell University College of Veterinary Medicine. And autopsy determined that the kittens died from asphyxiation and or hypothermia. The surviving kitten was suffering from hypothermia and or asphyxiation upon arrival at the Orchard Park Veterinary Medical Center. The kitten recovered and was adopted by the veterinarian. Taylor was sentenced to a conditional discharge, and the judge issued a 3-year no animal order. That means he can't have any animals for 3 years. How cruel. Why would somebody do that to poor little kittens? This issue too. So, overload. There's the pie is the pie to the face is loaded. So there's a pie, and this guy goes click. It's a automatic thing, and he clicked the button, and it went into his own eyes instead. And Drabble's wife, they're bowling, his wife and his friend and his wife, and his wife said, "This is my ball," and the other woman said, "No, it's not." Drabble says, "I still don't know why our wives are mad at each other." And the one wife says, "My ball is shiny and your ball is old and ugly." Drabble says, "At least I think they're speaking about us." And the man says, "I predict by the time the frame's over, they'll be friends again." And then Tiger's a little boy that walks around with his hat over his eyes, with the brim on it, and he's kind of like a sloppy kid. And his friend is riding his little tricycle. And he said to his friend, Stripe got his new license today. I guess that's his dog. And the little kid on the bike says, our dog got his own license. He can't even reach the pedals. And he's looking at his dog in the car like the dog was driving. And the other one said, not that kind of license. Let's move on now. We're going to go to Thursday, May 14th issue. Waiting out the Villette, farmers are facing tough climate in the marketplace and fields. Niagara County farmers are hanging tough through a chaotic economic climate and a cold, wet spring that has delayed planting. When asked how the growing season was going, Jim McNeil of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Lockport Service Center said it hasn't even started yet. Brendan Monaco of Goodman Farms in Wilson said their planting was several weeks behind. We can't even get into the fields right now. It's too wet, he said. We're a couple of weeks behind. Soil temperature is crucial. Produce is going to be later for us. It's a day-by-day operation. We've had a pretty wet spring, and we've had a pretty wet spring last year, said Mike Sider, district engineer for the Niagara County Soil and Water District. He said a lot of the guys don't have anything in the ground because things have been so cold and wet. The guys on the ridge with the sandy grounds can get something in, and we definitely need it to warm up and dry out. So on Wednesday, rain showers refilled puddles and low fields where water tables have remained high. April's precipitation has only tapered off slightly. At least half of the days in May have also provided rain. On April 29th, meteorologist Don Paul wrote in the Buffalo News, this wet month will finish up with close to 5.5 inches of rain for Buffalo, about 2.25 inches above average. We've actually sort of on track with it where we were last year, which I'd call 7 to 10 days behind where we'd like to be, said Max Russell of Appleton, Vice President of the Niagara Farm Bureau. That's not exactly uncharted territory. Russell said what looms large for field crop manager farmers are the planting days for full crop insurance coverage. He said corn and soybeans need to be planted by June 10th, with the percentage of coverage declining each year after. The coverage drops because the USDA decides it's not a good risk, Russell said. We always try to get the corn planted in May, if need be, the first week of June. Dairy farmers will plant later than anyone else because they can chop the corn for silage. Bear Ridge Solar Farm is seeking nearly $27 million in tax incentives. It's another article. Well, with its legal issues with the town of Cambria now settled, Bear Ridge Solar is now seeking county incentives for its massive solar project. Cypress Creek Energy Developers of the 100 MW farm in Cambria and Pendleton is looking for nearly $27 million in various tax incentives toward the $220.6 million development. Those include $18.6 million in sales tax exemptions, $6.9 million in property tax exemptions over a 20-year period, and $1.4 million in mortgage recording tax exemptions. The proposed project will play a key role in advancing this market's transformation and signify the responsiveness of the private sector to the state's agricultural goals for more renewable energy generation, the applicant for the IDA reads. Centered at 5832 Comstock Road, with 80% of the project in Cambria and the other 20% in Pendleton, the farm would utilize 516 acres of the 1,058 acres of farmland under lease in the towns. The wattage generated would be enough to power 25,000 homes and would be connected to the electrical grid through National Grid's Lockport Mountain 115 kV lines. The North Carolina-based Cypress Creek Energy first proposed the development in 2018, but has faced considerable opposition among residents and local government entities. You're listening to reading articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And St. Jude the Apostle Church, they were going to close. Well, that was overturned by the Vatican. So really is in favor of the North Tonawanda Church. It's a good thing. And also the U.S. overdose deaths fell again in 2025. And that's a good thing, too. Okay, let's move on to Friday, May 15th. So, stronger than hate, Buffalo continues to rise above the racist attack that claimed 10 lives. In Buffalo, Governor Kathy Hochul marked the anniversary of the racist mass shooting that killed 10 black people at Tops Market with news of additional funding for a planned memorial. Hochul told those gathered at the 4-year anniversary that an additional $3 million has been secured for the construction of the 514 Living Memorial and Healing Center, a permanent and living memorial honoring those lost and injured, bringing the total state contribution to $9 million. Members of the community had gathered together at the Tops location on Jefferson Avenue to honor the victims of the attack that left 10 dead, 3 injured, and changed the lives of survivors and the Western New York community. Those killed on May 14th were Aaron Sattler Jr., Ruth Whitfield, Pearl Young, Catherine or Kate Massey, Roberta Drury, Haywood Patterson, Christine Cheney, Andre McInnell, Geraldine Talley, and Marcus DeMorrison. This is a hate crime on an unthinkable scale, Mayor Sean Ryan told the gathering. Sean Ryan is the new mayor of Buffalo. Okay, in other news, there's a solar farm cannabis growing facility is eyed for Wheatfield. In Wheatfield, the Wheatfield Planning Board recently took a look at proposals for a new solar farm and cannabis growing facility. Rochester-based Entros LLC is proposing a solar facility for 49.3 acres of vacant farmland on the north side of Lockport Road, currently owned by Calvin Full. This would be the third such Wheatfield solar facility set up on that road. With the 6.3 MWLR Wheatfield Solar 1 starting operations in November of 2020, that was at 2469 Lockport Road, and the 4 MWCVE US EI3 facility starting in December 2023 at 3635 Lockport Road. And the board chair, Susan Anginello Everwine, said Wednesday that the developer will not provide details on whether it would be a Tier 3 or Tier 4 system, or how many panels it would have. She is certain the power it would generate would be used locally, otherwise they would not approve it. Right now, they just come to us and give us directions for what we need to do, she said. The cannabis proposal will be sited in an empty building at 6115 Lendell Drive, located near the Shawnee Volunteer Fire Company. The 2-acre site could be strictly for growing cannabis crops, with plans to hire between 16 and 20 people. Architect Tomasillo Riccado spoke about the facility on behalf of the developer. It would be the first such growing space in Wheatfield, with a town home to one dispensary, Love Nug on Niagara Falls Boulevard. The planners did raise concerns about its location near the fire hall, but were assured it would be far enough away. Planners did not give information on how long it would operate during the day, and suggested that Brigado come back with the developer at a future meeting. Then, in other news, a suspect in Niagara Falls homicide was indicted by the grand jury. A Niagara County grand jury has indicted a Buffalo man in connection with the Falls' first homicide in 2026. The grand jurors charged Lamont Kirk, 39, with single counts of second-degree murder and second-degree criminal possession of a weapon and the death of Jessica Emery. He was arraigned before New York State Supreme Court Justice Mario Giacobbe and entered a plea of not guilty on Wednesday. The judge ordered Kirk held without bail pending an attorney appearance set for June 1st. And then there was a Civil War music highlights a Memorial Day program that you're having. A Niagara History Center features reenactors performing selected songs. The Niagara History Center will present an evening of Civil War music and remembrances from 7 to 8 p.m. Wednesday at its museum at 215 Niagara Street in Lockport. I guess that was yesterday or last Wednesday, I'm sorry. I guess that already happened. I hope that you made it there. Let's see what else we can find. In Washington, the senators unanimously approved a resolution Thursday to withhold their pay during government shutdowns. Wow. An attempt to make federal closures financially painful for lawmakers after a string of record-breaking impasses in the past year. I wonder if they withhold their pay if they get it back retroactive. That would be interesting to know. So the bipartisan support for the measure comes at a time when federal closures have become longer and more frequent, frustrating lawmakers who say they should be punished when Congress fails as its most basic legislative duty. Under the resolution, senators' pay would be withheld by the Secretary of the Senate whenever a government shutdown affects one or more agencies. Then released when funding is restored, so they are going to get the money back. It will take effect the day after the November 3rd general election. It does not apply to the House. Shutting down government should not be our default solution to our refusal to work at our issues and our differences, Senator John Kennedy, the bill's sponsor, in a floor speech said Wednesday. This is about putting our money where our mouth is, said Kennedy, who is a Republican from Louisiana. 2 shutdowns in the past year created significant financial hardship for tens of thousands of federal workers, particularly at the Department of Homeland Security. The department reopened last month after a 76-day partial shutdown, the longest agency funding lapse in history. The Department of Homeland Security shutdown came just a few months after a 43-day lapse of the entire federal government, which was the longest such closure on record. The Constitution stimulates the lawmakers must be paid so they have received salaries during shutdowns, even as federal workers went without paychecks. That seems unfair, right? When the full government shutdown began in October amid a dispute over health care subsidies, Senator Lindsey Graham proposed a constitutional amendment to require members to forfeit their paychecks when the government's closed. If members of Congress had to forfeit their pay during government shutdowns, there would be fewer shutdowns and they would end quicker, he said. Oh, there you go. So, this is an interesting article. The Supreme Court preserves access to widely used abortion pill. I didn't even know there was such a thing. Well, in Washington, the Supreme Court on Thursday preserved women's access to a drug used in the most common method of abortion, rejecting lower cost restrictions while the lawsuit continues. The court's order allows women seeking abortions to continue obtaining the drug mifestrone at pharmacies or through the mail without an in-person visit to a doctor. Access is likely to remain uninterrupted at least until next year as the case plays out, including potential appeal to the High Court. So Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, and similarly aligned groups had called on Trump to fire Mark McCary over the slow pace of the mifestrone review. The court is dealing with its latest abortion controversy 4 years after its conservative major overturned Roe v. Wade, allowed more than a dozen states to effectively ban abortion outright. The case before the court stems from a lawsuit Louisiana filed to roll back the Food and Drug Administration's rules on how that mifestrone can be prescribed. The state claims that the policy undermines the ban there, and it questions the safety of the drug, which has repeatedly been deemed safe and effective by FDA scientists. Wow. Get into some little bit of a lighter stuff here. Dear Annie, let's do some Dear Annies. Dear Annie, I've been friends with Mark since we were in high school, which was over 15 years ago. But over the past year, there's gotten a shift in him. He's gotten deep into conspiracy theories. Every conversation turns to a rant about the government's hidden agenda or the evils of the pharmaceutical industry. I brushed it off for a while, but it's constant. It makes me not want to be around him. I've tried joking it away or even telling him directly that it makes me uncomfortable. But he doubles down or he says that I've been brainwashed. I'm not really sure how to save this friendship, and I think I might just have to keep my distance and hope this is a phase, unless there is something else I can say to him. How can I get through to him? And she said, oh, well, probably not. He sounds like he's gone deep down the rabbit hole, and any attempt to reason with him will only widen the distance between you. Make your boundaries very clear, and when it turns out this I'm out, when it turns out like this, say I'm out. You're protecting the part of the friendship that still exists. And another, dear Annie, I know this is the age-old problem of being single for many years, but do you think statistically there's a chance to meet a decent guy at 66? Dating sites are a horrible option for women and men. They usually want casual hookups, which isn't what I'm looking for. I also know there are differences in attraction between men and women. Men look at a picture of an attractive woman, and that's what they want. I look at a picture, and that's all it is, too. A picture. I have many emotional scars from men who badly mistreated me, starting with an abusive alcoholic father. I can't afford therapy at $100 a pop. Any advice? And she signs it, tired of the freaks who find me attractive. And Annie said, you're tired. Yes, there's a chance for you to find love. It may not just look that way, what you expect. At 66, many people meet new partners, not through asks, but through mutual interest, a routine, volunteering, classes, community groups, shared faith. These are places where connections grow naturally, beyond a photo and a short bio. If therapy isn't affordable, look into local groups such as Al-Anon, which can help you work through some of your history. Your hesitations make sense given your past, but these experiences give you the wisdom to know what you will and won't accept. So we do have some more cartoons in this issue too. And Drabble, we read Drabble. Well, the wife and the friend, again, and the husband and his friend, and the wife and the friend are talking. And the friend said, I'm sorry, I acted so terribly. And the wife said, I'm sorry I said all those things. And they look at the men and they go, we're both sorry we beat you guys at bowling. And they said, nah. And the men said, I like it better when they were enemies. Of course. Now, Mother Goose and Grimm, the dog, Mother Goose has got this really short dog with floppy ears and this great big nose. And I guess the vet said, you gained 10 pounds this week. You didn't exercise like I told you to. And the dog said, exercise? I thought you said extra fries. And then in Baldo, somebody's swimming in the pool. I think it's Baldo. And the lifeguard says, hey, Zeke, pool's closing. Time to wrap things up. And Zeke says, okay. So he's still standing in the water. And the guy finally looks at him and said, did you get your catheter stuck into the water filter again? And the guy said, yep. He said, okay, I'll go get the pool plunger. We're going to get to the last issue we have, which is Saturday and Sunday, May 16th and 17th. So the canal opens for the season. The New York State Canal System officially opened for the season on Friday. It's the 202nd consecutive season of navigation, and at a time when America readies to celebrate its 250th birthday, and a reminder of New York's critical role, both past and present, in our country's history, according to the New York Power Authority and New York State Canal Corporation. We have a year packed with events and community celebrations, and hope that New Yorkers and visitors across the 524-mile system join us to enjoy all that is scenic and our scenic waterways has to offer. New York State Canal Corporation maintenance and operations staff work through a challenging winter season to ensure the canal system's locks, lift bridges, and infrastructure assets are safe and in good working order to welcome boaters from all around the world. So we're going to have a Memorial Day parade to return set on May 24th. The city's Memorial Day parade will take place at 1 p.m. on May 24th with 28 marching groups, followed by an appreciation event at Canal Street from 2 to 5 p.m. The day's recognition of the contributions of veterans of the armed forces who died while serving begins with a ceremony at Cold Springs Cemetery, said organizer Keith Kitcherberger, alderman at large. The gathering will include words of tribute from town and city officials, with the Lockport High School band playing the national anthem and other music. And Niagara Charter School marked its 20th year. Niagara Falls supporters of Niagara Charter School have had a lot of reasons to celebrate this year. The Lockport Road School is marking 20 years of service in the community. So on April 14th, back then, teachers and administrators received welcome news from the New York State Board of Regents, which approved the school's request for renewal of its charter for an additional 5 years. Finally, the National Training and Assessment Company, Franklin Covey Education, named Niagara Charter School a leader in Me Lighthouse School. The certification from the National Training and Assessment Services Company is granted to schools demonstrating outstanding student outcomes and achievements. Nice. So the Candlelight, they're hiring the CEO of the new Candlelight Curated Incorporated, which purchased the former Candlelight Cabinetry Company, asked former employees to be patient for another week as the company starts up operations by seeking orders. Said at a press conference on Friday at the manufacturing facility at 24 Michigan Street, Peter DeMacco, CEO of the newly formed Candlelight Curated, said the cabinetry company expects to start its first phase of operations in 2 or 3 weeks and will add employees as orders are received. So they're hiring if anybody needs a job. We're reading articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. In other news, there's a red fox kits. Those are baby foxes. Another springtime joy. I love foxes. And there's a picture of this cute little baby red fox. Aww. And he's just looking right at the camera. So red fox kits, often called pups, are old enough now to start coming out of their dens and play around outside the holes. Photographing these playfulness and cute appearance is something I try to squeeze into my annual spring photographing adventures. This is Douglas Domdinian from the Great Outdoors. He says, I'm very familiar with this wildlife species and had quite a reputation as a fox trapper when I was young, long time ago. In fact, I was offered a job as a state predator trapper at that time, which for various reasons I didn't act on. At one time, the fox was considered a bad predator of the ring-necked pheasant, which was a very popular game bird at that time, and the state was trying to reduce its numbers. There used to be big weekend hunts by organized hunters. As it turned out, there were a lot of other more serious problems affecting the pheasant population, and eventually a hunting and trapping season was placed on the fox. Aww. Although I no longer trap, there is still the drive to capture their beauty whenever I can, and those cute little kits fit the bill perfectly. Fox dens with pups were usually found in open areas, but after the coyotes moved into town and decided that foxes were good to eat, Mr. Red has moved his family raising dens to more secluded areas, like deep in the woods and close to humans, so coyotes stay clear. It's not unusual now to find these dens under folk sheds, around barns, old building foundations, and even places in the city. Recently, I got an email from a neighbor saying his daughter saw 6 fox pups playing near the road when she went to work. I know of this den site as it had been used for many years, but even being near the road is a very difficult photographing situation because of the lay of the land, which keeps them out of sight most of the time. However, I kept watching, and then one day, coming back from a photo adventure with ospreys, I spied the mother and several pups on the top of the field's edge before it dropped off into the woods. They, of course, disappeared over the bank, so I kept driving with the idea of coming back a little later after things settled down. So Mom and Dad are kept quite busy around the clock feeding 4 to 6 pups. And so while the parents are out hunting for food, those curious and playful young ones frolic and lie around outside the den holes. This is the situation I was looking for, as it gets really comical sometimes. This morning I decided to go back a little later and wait around to see if any would show up again. And after about an hour, 2 pups showed up on the top edge and began goofing around. At first they noticed my car, but after eyeing it for quite a while it was determined that I was of no real danger. I must add here that fox pups are quite naive, so unless Mom or Papa are around to sound a warning, they get used to something new quite easily. Well, one stuck around for quite a while, even though he would disappear over the bank off and on to check on his litter mate. Some cute poses were offered and off and on, and then something caught my eye in the side view mirror. It was Ma Fox crossing the road behind me, headed for the den site. She must have given a danger barking call to them, as that was the last I saw of him. Another half-hour wait showed no more activity, so I headed home, happy with the cute shots the little guy had given me. Deer are still a problem among our roads and will continue to be so as their population is way too high. So the DC is planning for a longer early September hunting season, but I think that's counterproductive as it only gets the deer wise to hunters early and makes them more difficult to hunt later in the season. And I think the real problem is that it's less and less private land available for hunting, public hunting. The deer are using those lands as sanctuary. They're pretty smart creatures, and it doesn't take them long to figure out what's going on. We do have one death to announce here, one obituary, and it was Deborah Staggers, who passed away on May 14th in Niagara Hospice. Okay, as we all know, it's going to be strawberry season pretty soon. A lot of places have pick your own. Well, there's an article here. It says, what to do with oodles and oodles of strawberries. So too many strawberries are never a problem. It's always easy to simply gorge on these unsweet berries straight out of the basket, all natural. However, when presented with such an abundance, it helps to have a few recipes to choose from to make them creative. Of course, you can always do the typical strawberry shortcake. And I've had strawberry shortcake that had a scoop of ice cream and then the strawberries, which was really awesome. So put a pint or two aside and make the simple light cake. It's a strawberry buttermilk cake. And it's a 9-inch cake. You use 1.5 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of kosher salt, 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter softened, 3/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 large egg at room temperature, half a cup of buttermilk, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon of finely grated lemon zest, and 1 pound of strawberries, halved or quartered if they're really large. So you heat the oven to 350 degrees, butter a 9-inch pan or dish or a tart pan, whisk the flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt in a bowl. Then you combine the butter, a 3/4 cup of sugar, in a standard mixer, or you could probably do it by hand if you wanted. Beat on medium-high speed until light and fluffy, about 3 minutes. Add the egg, buttermilk, vanilla, and 1 teaspoon of lemon zest, and then you mix it on medium speed. And then you add the dry ingredients. You spread the batter in the prepared dish, arrange the strawberries, cut the sides down on top of the batter, generally pressing to partially submerge. Squeeze in as many strawberries as possible, and it's okay to be greedy. Sprinkle the top of the cake with 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then you bake in the oven till the top is light golden, and a toothpick in the center comes out clean. This is like 50 to 60 minutes. And you can garnish with lemon zest if you want, or whipped cream, which sounds much better. So here's some top 9 grilling mistakes that people make. I love to grill and barbecue, and I have devoted my career to outdoor cooking. This Elizabeth Carmel says. I've seen a lot of mistakes, and people tend to make them over and over again. It says never use oil on the grill. Many people oil their cooking grates. Big blunder. Follow my mantra. Oil the food, not the grates. If you brush oil on hot cooking grates, you run the risk of a big flare-up. That makes sense. Don't put food on a cold grill. Always preheat a gas grill with all burners on high or hotter than 550 degrees. The hotter the grill, the more likely you will burn the outside of the food before the inside is cooked. So clean that dirty grill. An outdoor grill is like a cast iron skillet. It gets better if you do this. It will never be a big job to clean your grill. If you don't have a grill cleaning brush, crumble a ball with heavy aluminum foil and use a pair of 12-inch locking chef tongs used to clean the grill. And the right way to deal with a flare-up is never use water bottle to extinguish a flare-up. Spraying water on a hot fire can produce steam vapors, which may cause severe burns. The water can also crack the porcelain enamel finish. Fire loves oxygen, so to cook with the lid down and don't peek. Repeatedly lifting the lid to peek and check the food while it's cooking lengthens cooking time. Avoid frequent flipping. So you're not supposed to flip your food all the time, I guess. Not, dodge cross-contamination. And then don't sauce too soon. If I had a dime for every time I saw someone pour thick, sweet barbecue sauce on a bone-in chicken piece or whole rack of ribs while they were raw, it would be a wealthy griller. All barbecue sauces have a lot of sugar in them, and sugar burns quickly, almost always burning the outside of the food before the inside cooks. Okay, we do have some more cartoons here. So let's see who we have. On Overboard, oh, there's a dog, and the dog's sniffing a bee on a flower. And the dog says, "The wasp who didn't mind a bug," oh, it was a wasp. The wasp who didn't mind a big nose smelling the flower he was resting on. And that's the name of, I guess, a book, but it says, "Look for the fiction aisle," and the dog runs away because I guess the bee stung him, or the wasp, whatever it was, stung him. So in Drabble, again, it's a man and his wife and her friend, and you remember they went bowling together. Well, now they're out their house. So she says, "I'm glad we didn't let a little misunderstanding ruin our friendship. Hear, hear." And the wife says, "I'm sorry for getting upset over nothing." And her friend said, "And I'm sorry I said your dog was obnoxious." And the husband says, "You said what?" And the husband got mad and said, "Get out of here." So, Mother Goose and Grimm. Mother Goose says, "My friends tell me you're in your 90s. And this man that she's walking with said, "Early 90s. That's cute. You are listening to reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So, Nancy and Vicki Price Memorial 5K winners were announced. 3 scholarships were offered this year. So this year, Nancy and Vicki's Price Memorial 5K featured 117 runners. Sponsored by Dominio Lewiston Tops, was held on May 8th with the start and finish at the Griffon Brewery in Youngstown. Well, the male and female winners were Matt Mellink from Delta, British Columbia, with a time of 17 minutes and 26 seconds, and Jody Bozzolino from Tonawanda with a time of 22 minutes and 25 seconds. The Nancy and Vicki Price Memorial Scholarship honors the memory of Nancy Price, longtime director of Youngstown Recreation, and Vicki Price, a devoted Lewiston Porter teacher assistant. This year's scholarship recipients reflect the spirit, compassion, and commitment that define Nancy and Vicki's legacy. Winners are selected through a competitive process. This year's scholarship winners are Rastelyn Julius, who has been awarded a $2,000 annual scholarship, renewable for up to 4 years, for a total award of $8,000. A former participant in Youngstown Recreation holiday parties as a child, Rastelyn has grown into a dedicated young leader with a passion for reading, learning, and giving back to her community. She serves as a soccer coach for the youngest players and has contributed more than 65 hours to volunteer work and service projects. This fall, Rastelyn plans to attend Brigham Young University to study biomedical sciences and pre-med with the goal of becoming a pediatric surgeon so she can help children the way doctors have helped her. Then Casey Ginvelski has been awarded a $2,000 scholarship. Growing up, Casey found happiness and a sense of safety playing at Veterans and Faulkner Parks, experiences that helped shape her connection to the community. She's excelled at BOCES, where she was selected as a student ambassador, representing the program to local businesses, students, and parents. Casey has also given back through volunteer services, including selling raffle tickets at Friends of Youngstown fundraisers and coaching summer baseball for the Recreation Department. This fall, she plans to attend the University of Buffalo to study nuclear medicine technology, preparing for a future in which she can continue serving her community. And then the next one was Julian Janoschek. She has been awarded a $2,000 scholarship. Growing up, Julian participated in many Youngstown recreation activities, it's a he, where he built lasting friendships with other children in the community. More recently, he experienced the impact of Youngstown recreation from a new perspective through the inclusive basketball program. As a volunteer, Julian brought heartfelt joy and encouragement to the children, supporting activities and sharing their laughter and enthusiasm. This fall, he will have plans to attend sunny Schenectady to pursue a career as an air traffic controller, building a future grounded in discipline, responsibility, and perseverance. And I guess that's it for today. So you've been listening to a reading of articles and features for current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal. We read from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal every Saturday at 5.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,